Well, good morning again. Thanks for joining us. This is Dave Buggy with Behringer Associates, and I also have James Yost with me, who's going to be participating in our webinar this morning. I really want to thank you for taking time out today to go through the content. I think we've got a really good session for you today, and talking all about the Microsoft Surface device. So as you can see, we're live on webcam here. We have some visuals that we thought would be best to do in a live sense, so we've got our webcams turned on so you can see what we look like and put a face to a name. And just wanted to cover some housekeeping first here as we get started. So we're obviously in GoToWebinar here for this session, and you will be in listen-only mode. So if you need to ask a question, and we really encourage you to do so, right in your GoToWebinar client, there is an area down here that you can ask a question. So feel free to type those in. Give us any feedback throughout the presentation, anything you might want to talk a little bit more about, or obviously any questions that you might have as well. You can also get rid of your GoToMeeting client so you see more of the presentation on your screen by clicking the orange arrow, and you can also put it into full screen mode by clicking on the circle that looks like it has a square in the middle of it, and that will give you the full screen experience. Also, there is a raise your hand function, so if you're having any difficulties with audio, if we're not coming through clear or screen doesn't look right, feel free to either ask a question or go ahead and raise your hand. So as I said, I'm Dave Buggy with Behringer Associates. I'm a VP and a partner here, and I also have with me James Yost, and James is our software development group here and also one of our resident Surface experts. So James, thanks for joining us. I think we've got a good session today. So just a little bit about the agenda that we have lined up for you. I talk to a lot of people about technology in general, and one of the topics that's coming up is the Microsoft Surface. Kind of what is it, and what can you use it for in your business? So we thought, put together a webinar on this. It's such a great topic. So that's what we're obviously looking at today. And have some great information for you on the Microsoft Surface device. We're going to talk about the lineup of the devices. So what's your options if you decide to purchase the Surface? What are your accessory options that you have in the Surface line? So there's docks, there's external keyboards, and some other things that are great accessories to have with the Surface. How does the Surface stack up against the other devices on the market like the iPad and Android tablets? And then James is going to take us through some tips and tricks, some really great things that you can do with the Surface device, with the pen, and just some general power user type tips and tricks. So if you're joining us and you already have a Surface device, that might be a bit of an educational experience for you to learn some things that you might not know about the Surface device itself.
I don't have any either, so I'll be fine when I'll be next to you.
So if somebody could mute out the panelists, we're getting some noise on the line here, that would be great. And then also, we're going to talk a little bit about how do you manage mobile devices. That's becoming a hot topic. So companies have so many mobile devices out in the hands of their users today, and some of them are owned by the company, some are not. So there's obviously some risk there in either scenario because you have so much data now that's being stored on the mobile device. So we want to talk about how do you effectively manage those devices so you can minimize your risk of having that information on those devices out in the field. So let's talk first about what is the overview of the Surface device. How did it come into market? What are the options that you have if you go to look at Surface devices and so forth? So the Surface table is actually the first design that Microsoft came out with, and there's a picture of that on the lower right portion of the slide. I was fortunate enough to be able to use one of those devices when they first came out. I was at Microsoft Corporate, and it was really interesting that you could sit down at that table and be able to interact with the device. So you could use your hand and slide pictures around, and you could drop your phone onto the device, and you'd be able to pull pictures and contacts and things off your phone. So there were some really neat things that you could do with that table. That was the original design, but I think Microsoft realized very quickly that there was going to be an issue with affordability of that device. So they started to look more toward a tablet design for that particular device. Okay, so that's what we're going to take a look at today. So in 2013, tablets have now outsold laptops. Pretty big change in the market that, laptops came into the market, they started to outsell desktops, and now we're seeing that in 2013 that tablets are now outselling laptops and desktops as well. So lots of presence in the market, and there are a lot of options as a result of that market growth, Surface being one of those options. The Surface RT was released in October 2012. The Surface RT is a slimmed down version of the Microsoft Surface device. So there are some limitations there that you need to be aware of in using the Surface RT that we'll talk about. The Surface Pro was released in 2013, which is more of the business class device in the Surface line. And then subsequent releases, we saw the Surface 3, the Surface 4, which is what I'm using right now, and I believe, James, you're on the Surface 4 as well?
Surface Book, actually.
Oh, that's right, you're on the Surface Book, so we're going to get to see both today. And as I said, the Surface RT and the non-Pro versions of the Surface are not really designed to be used in a business class environment. The restrictions on the non-Pro based devices are that you can't join the domain. So if your company uses a network domain, then you typically aren't going to be able to use that device, at least as it pertains to joining and interacting with the domain. The other big limitation is you cannot just install any application on the non-Pro version of the Surface. And that's a big distinction, right? Because one of the big benefits of the Surface is that it gives you a lot more flexibility in what devices that you're able, what applications you're able to install and use on it. So you really, if you're going to use it in a business environment, you really want to go with the Pro level devices in a business environment. So talking about the software on the Microsoft Surface device, very similar to a laptop or a desktop. Microsoft really had a push on and a real emphasis a couple of years ago of really device autonomy, right? And they've achieved a lot of that. So if you're a hardcore Microsoft user and you've got a Windows phone and you've got maybe a tablet that runs Windows and you've got a desktop that runs Windows, wherever you log in from any of those devices, you're going to get the same user experience. It's all a very common user interface to you no matter what device you're on. The big benefit with the Microsoft Surface device is that you can run any application on the Surface device that you would on your laptop or your desktop. And that therein is the biggest benefit that I personally find with the Surface device. If you use an iPad, you cannot install Windows applications on the iPad. So there's definitely limitations there, and same thing with the Android devices, that you cannot just install any Windows application. That's very limiting in a business environment. If you're using Microsoft-based applications to run your business, then big limitations there if you're not able to bring those down to your tablet user experience. So probably the biggest benefit to the Surface device overall. Seamless integration with Office 365. If you're not aware of what Office 365 is, it is Microsoft's cloud-based version of their Office suite. It incorporates both the desktop level products, so you can get Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so forth through Office 365. Benefit there is that you're always going to have the most up-to-date versions. So as they come out and they're available in Office 365, you're going to have access to them. It also includes the back-end server components for things like Exchange Server, SharePoint, and so forth. So you're limiting the amount of IT infrastructure that you need to have in your control. Microsoft is going to host all that for you on the back end, and you're really then just interacting with it from a client perspective. So we do a lot of work with Office 365, not the content of today's presentation, but in 2015, we were Microsoft's Mid-Atlantic Cloud Partner of the Year, so we do a lot of work in Microsoft Cloud technologies, Office 365 being one of them. So if you have any interest in that, by all means, reach out. We'd love to talk to you further about the Office 365 platform. Also, seamless integration with OneDrive. OneDrive is Microsoft's file storage system that's in the cloud. Some really great functionality there. There's the personal OneDrive, and then there's also the business OneDrive, which you can collaboratively then share information across your company. So again, not the topic of today's presentation, but certainly follow up if you have any questions or want to see that. BitLocker encryption, it goes back to kind of the mobile device management topic, is that you have so much information on your devices today that if a device goes missing, there is a lot of risk there in the device. So depending on what kind of business you're in, I don't think any business would want their information in the hands of, people that aren't employees. Particularly if you're in healthcare or government-regulated industries, there is big risk there. So encrypting the device essentially makes it impossible virtually for somebody that doesn't have the encryption key to look at the information on that device. So it's a really good way of assuring that if the device gets out of your control, that it's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for somebody that's not authorized to access that information. Really good functionality in the Surface on split screen and multitasking. One of the things that I find really useful, and James, I don't think we have that as a particular topic in the agenda, but something that you might be able to show for us is how you can snap applications on the screen and use a couple applications at once. There's Cortana. Cortana you might not have heard a lot about. Everybody thinks of Siri because that's the highly publicized Apple voice integration product. Microsoft has an equivalent to that called Cortana, which they're doing some phenomenal work with. And we're going to show you Cortana today, and we're going to show you some really interesting things that Cortana is doing. So it's not just a fancy, voice interaction functionality to play with. You can actually really use it for real-life use case scenarios, and James has got a few that he's got to run through with you. Multiple screens and projecting. So I spend a lot of time out meeting with clients and needing to project my screen, and you can do that very easily with the Surface device. There's actually a mini display port on the Surface device that you can plug a projector into, an external monitor, and so forth. So really easy to plug in and project and share your screen. And then also built-in web browsers. So there's two web browsers that comes with Windows 10. One is called Microsoft Edge, which is a new version of a browser from Microsoft that has really got some really neat functionality. The downside of it is that some of the applications and sites that you use are not yet compatible with Edge. So I find that you can use Edge with some things and maybe not with others.
We have been adding exception support recently, though.
Oh, that's a good tip. So is there a backward compatibility mode kind of like Internet Explorer has? Do you know?
There is a compatibility mode for Edge. I'm not sure what it covers.
Okay.
But they are adding to it rapidly. They're actually adding in Chrome extension support too.
Oh, great.
They're attempting to.
Good tip. So sounds like that's getting better in terms of the compatibility around Edge. Edge is we'll pull it up and show you. James has got some information in his scenarios around Edge, just a different user perspective. Some people like it, some people don't like anything else. And then, of course, Internet Explorer comes with Windows 10, and there's good backward compatibility in Internet Explorer. So talking about the hardware, I have to be honest, I'm not one of those guys that obsesses over the specifications around devices. There are some that are very interested in that. The president of our company, Craig, who I don't think is on the session with us, is definitely a device geek. So if anybody out there knows Craig, I think you would probably agree with that. He knows every device and just about every spec on every device out in the market. Definitely a passion for devices. Me, I just want to know that when I turn it on, it's fast, it works. I can do my work, and what's happening in the background there I'm not as interested in. But for those of you that are, the Surface Pro 4 models, there's some selection that you have on the CPU. I found that just about all those CPUs are going to run very well for the average business user. If you're using some intensive applications, you might want to consider the i5 or the i7 CPU, as you're going to get more horsepower there. The Surface Book models have Intel Core i5 or i7. Again, I find that just either one of those is probably going to be adequate for just about any average business user. On the RAM side, the Surface Pro models can have anywhere from 4 to 16 gigabytes of RAM. It is something that you typically need to make a decision up front on. I don't know, James, if you know if a user can add additional RAM to a Surface. It's a sealed device. If you open up the device, you're going to void the warranty. So it's not like a PC that you can just order more RAM and put it in. So my advice there would be to go heavy on the RAM. As software applications evolve, it seems like RAM is one of the things that continually needs to, fuel that horsepower. So choose on the higher end of that. And then Surface Book, same thing, 4 to 16 gig. On the storage side, one of the benefits of the Surface device overall is that they use solid-state hard drives. Not going to get too propeller head into how a hard drive works, but basically the traditional hard drives have moving parts. There's platters that spin inside the drive, and almost like if you think of a record player with a needle on the record reading the data. The flash drives have no moving parts. They are solid-state, and they are tremendously faster than any form of traditional hard drive. So that's why you'll notice that when you hit the power button on the Surface, it's literally seconds until you're at your login and able to start using applications. If you haven't yet experienced the Surface, that is one thing that you will fall in love with, and you will probably never be able to go back to a traditional device due to that solid-state hard drive. Now, solid-state hard drives are available in other devices. It's not unique to the Surface. Even servers today have the ability to have solid-state hard drives in them, and greatly enhances the performance of any device that you can put them in. So on the Surface Pro 4, you can have anywhere from 128 to 1 terabyte of storage. Same thing on the Surface Book. What I find personally is that you don't need as much local storage today in general because there's so much cloud storage. We talked about Microsoft's OneDrive. It's personally what I use, what we use as a company, and we also use SharePoint. So almost all of our file storage is up in those systems. If you want local copies of those libraries, then you do need the hard drive space to store that. So I synchronize, for example, all the OneDrive documents down to my laptop. So I was on an airplane last night, and I could continue working on those documents even though I had no connection. Keyboard, the Surface Pro has an on-screen keyboard, and it also has an optional detachable keyboard that James is going to show you when he gets to the visual of the actual Surface device itself. Definitely go with the detachable keyboard, what's called the type cover. I can say that I don't know of anybody that would be happy just using the on-screen keyboard. So think about that when you go to take a look at these. Mouse, you've got the type cover itself has a really nice mouse built into it. And by the way, the people that are on it might have a Surface 3 device. You can actually buy the Surface Pro 4 keyboard that's compatible with the Surface 3. Highly recommend it. It's a much better keyboard than what came with the Surface 3. So that is compatible. So there is a mouse built into the type cover. The Surface Book has a trackpad built into it. And then, of course, you can also use the Surface Pen that comes with the Surface device as well. And that is where some of the real power use of the device comes in. So you've got this pen that comes with the device, and you can actually interact really well with the Surface device using just the pen that comes with it. And James is going to run you through that functionality as well. So in terms of additional hardware for the Surface device, one thing that you'd really want to consider is one of the docks that are available for the Surface device. So when I go back to my office, I simply take my Surface device and put it into the dock that you see on the right of your screen there. That enables me to have multiple monitors, an external mouse and keyboard, more USB ports, and really it's just like a desktop PC at that point. And I prefer that. So I don't like to work on a small screen all day. I do way too many things at one time to do that. So I have 3 monitors, actually, and need that real estate to do work effectively. So definitely something you want to consider. I prefer the older style of the Surface dock, which again is the one on the right. The one on the left is the newer style that came out with the Surface Pro 4. Again, either one of these work. If you go with the one on the right, it is meant for the 3. It will work with the 4. You just have to kind of tilt the one side of the Surface 4 up to get it in that dock. Or Microsoft will actually send you a free adapter that will enable you to just put the Surface Pro 4 in that dock, and it works perfectly. But the other one is an option. It is less expensive. I believe last time I looked at the one on the right goes somewhere between $200 and $300. The one on the left, I believe, is about $140 last time I looked. So definitely a price difference and different capabilities around the docks as well. So Surface Pro versus the competition out in the market. Again, I don't personally study all the little nuances to the different devices. To me, what's important is weight of a device. So somewhere on the screen here, I believe we have some weights. At least I thought there were. Maybe. Oh, there we go. Yep. So right in the middle of the screen there, the Surface Pro 4 is about 1.6 pounds. The Surface Book, being more of a laptop footprint, is just under 3.5 pounds. iPad at 1.5 pounds, and so forth. So if you're a road warrior and travel a lot, that's something that probably is very important to you. Screen size also is something that is important to me. So on the Surface Pro 4, you've got a 12.3-inch screen, very vivid, just an amazing screen and graphic ability. And then the Surface Book is a little bit bigger. All within the same range, though. If you look across the iPad and MacBook Air and so forth, all very similar. Then it's down to how much RAM can you put in each one. Camera might be important to you. I personally don't use it too much, although I'm using it today. But typically using a cell phone for a camera, and really the bottom line is probably where my eyes would go next and toss. So you can see that Surface Pro Book 4, or Surface Pro 4 rather, is very competitive in the market. Again, the big benefit here is that you can run literally any Windows application that you can run on your desktop, notwithstanding operating system version differences, right? So if you're still on Windows 98 on your, your laptop or your desktop, and you're running a custom accounting system, good chance it's probably not going to run on the Surface device because it's Windows 10. So if you are running Windows 8, please give us terms of the call. I believe that you can get a Surface and have it backward compatible to Windows 8, but it will not go beyond that, and I would not recommend going back to Windows 8. Now, Windows 10 is definitely far superior to Windows 8. So from a price standpoint, you can see that very competitive, and really, again, the big benefit being that you can run any Windows application that you would need to on the Surface device, notwithstanding operating system version differences. So that's some background. I hope that was helpful to those of you that are considering the Surface device. We are Microsoft's devices reseller. We're one of very few IT organizations in the country, actually, that's been selected and certified to sell Microsoft devices. So if you have any questions, or you'd like to look at pricing around Surface devices, or want some guidance in helping select the right devices, maybe you want to do a pilot with Surface devices amongst your team. We do a lot of that with clients. We can also do an on-site session where we bring Surface devices in, put them in the hands of your management and executive team, and go through some work and use case scenarios. Very helpful for you to get hands-on with the technology and really see what it can do. And there's a big Office 365 component to those on-site sessions. So if you'd like to talk about doing one of those within your company, they are extremely beneficial. Just reach out. My contact information will be on the screen again as we close up. We'd love to talk to you further about doing all those. So with that, I'd like to turn things over to James. James is one of our, if not our resident Surface expert. So James has put together some really good content here on the Surface device itself, and going to run you through some use case scenarios. So give us a second here to just get switched over to James. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to type those into the question manager there in your GoToWebinar client. All right, James, I am promoting you to presenter. And you are ready to take it away.
Maybe. Hey, there we go. All right, guys. Dave, thanks for introducing me. So I want to go over a couple things with you here, and I want to start with the pen and the clipboard. When I say the clipboard, I'm referring to my device, which I'm going to now go ahead and stand up and use here just to show you the fact that I can actually use this device without issue. Well, it is asking me to log back in here.
So as you can see, this is a very, very portable device. We'll put the camera up a little bit there for you. And one of the huge benefits is that you can get up and interact with it and move around. James, you're using the Surface Book, so I believe your screen comes off the base of the device like the Surface tablet format does, right?
Let's show you here. There's the keyboard, simply referred to as the Surface Dock. That's simple. I can go ahead and plug that back in, but for right now, we're going to keep my device here just to show you that this is, in fact, my screen. There you are.
No smoke and mirrors, you're saying?
No smoke and mirrors. So with the Surface Pen here, there's a couple of features that we can take advantage of, and one of them is integration with the Microsoft Edge browser. I can go ahead and select at the top here, make an annotation, make a note, and let's say that I wanted to show Dave how to get to Route 29 from Trenton so that he can make his way down to me. I can actually just go onto my map here. I can circle, bring him down Route 1 onto Route 29, and just say, Dave, you're going to follow that route, and I can just go ahead and share that and send that to him as an email.
And of course, everybody uses mapping today to get back and forth. So that's a really good example of how just you can interact, in a different way with software programs than you're traditionally used to. What I find good about what James is showing you here, what I personally use that for is when I'm meeting with people and I need more of a visual, you think of the old whiteboards. We have one here behind me that I don't think we use very much anymore, probably not at all because of this type of technology, but you can, just pull up your Surface and start writing on it, and if you're projecting your screen, it is a projectable whiteboard at that point. The difference being that, as James said, you can now take this and easily email it to somebody so they have a copy of it.
Exactly. And one other thing I want to show you here is if I were to go to a web page, let's say, if you guys don't mind the plug, Behringer.net, I can actually go ahead and go into our blog section here. If you haven't been here before, this is Behringer's blogs. Usually you'll find a wealth of information from various employees in the company, including myself. I'll just open up one of mine here. This is a blog on CRM 2016 Interactive Dashboards, which is a very cool feature if you haven't looked at it yet. And let's say that I want to save this for later reading. Maybe I want to highlight a certain section here. So I'll just go ahead and highlight this out. And I can make the pen tip bigger, by the way, if I didn't want to scribble that much. I'll just go ahead and hit save. And I'm going to choose to save that to OneNote. And I'm going to go ahead and view the note. And here we are in OneNote. I'll go ahead and bring this up here. And you can actually see that I've got OneNote opened up now, excuse me, with the web page that I was looking at, with the notes that I was taking. And if I want to, I can use OneNote to continue editing these this post here. So this is a note, which I probably shouldn't use in blue ink. Probably kind of hard to read there, but I can make more notes. Right here, for example, that's an interactive dashboard. And I can even erase these notes too. And that's just with using a little eraser. It's kind of hard to see here from where I am, but if I just lean in close, you can see the eraser tip there. It functions just like an eraser on a pencil. I can lower myself back down here. Now the Surface Book itself isn't just limited to unplugging and plugging back in. I can also plug this guy back in here, turn it over, and now I can still take advantage of the tablet functionality if I want to.
And that's an important difference between the Surface Pro device, which is a true tablet format, and the Surface Book, is that the Surface Book is much more of a laptop than it is a tablet. Actually, I take that back. It is both, right? Because you can take that completely off the base, and it's a true tablet.
Yeah, and for what's worth, I would say that for the most part, if you're looking for just a conventional laptop functionality with the ability to turn it into a tablet, the Surface Pro will do just fine. The Surface Book is really It's a device with all the horsepower under the engine, or in the engine. I don't know cars. That's really where you're going to find everything that you're looking for. If you're using things that would require a graphics card, for example, a discrete graphics card, that's going to be built into the Surface Book device, depending upon certain configurations. So really, if you want to get everything that Microsoft has to offer in the hardware department, you would get the Surface Book. But for the majority of you, you're going to find that the Surface Pro 4 will really take advantage of your needs.
Yeah.
Since I'm a developer, the Surface Book is really where I'm at.
Yeah, and the Surface Book was a bit more expensive than the Surface Pro, a couple $100 actually.
Typically, it's about $600 to $900 more, depending on the configuration.
Yeah.
But they do offer a little bit more, and you can still get the i7, but you can also get up to a terabyte of solid-state storage. They may have made that available for the Pro 4. I'm not quite sure.
Okay. So another topic, James, I know this one is near and dear to your heart, is that people that are somewhat hard on equipment. I'm sure we have some of those in our company. Tell us about the glass on the Surface device.
So this is something that I probably like to do a little too much, but the Surface Pro 4 and the Surface Book are made with Gorilla Glass. So Gorilla Glass is a very tough, durable material, and so much so that I'm confident doing this right in front of you. Still absolutely fine. And that's for the Surface Pro 4 as well. I'm not going to ask Dave to punch his machine for me, but if he trusted me enough, he could do it, and it would be okay.
Yeah, great. So I don't know, have you ever dropped your device?
I'm going to pretend that I haven't, but yes, I absolutely have. I've dropped it on several occasions, and not only is the backing very resilient as well, but the glass itself has just fine. I mean, this thing has taken a little bit of punishment, and it's a trooper. It's holding on tight.
Because you think about it, that's one thing that can really be the end of your device, even though it would still function. If anybody's ever cracked the cell phone screen, I haven't personally. I don't know how I haven't, but I haven't. But if you do, your device is pretty much over at that point. And the Gorilla Glass is a very expensive material, so it's not like it's going to be cost effective for you just to go get it replaced. At that point, you're replacing the device. Yeah,
I personally have found I don't need a screen protector of any kind using this device. I know with tablets that have that glossy finish, much like the Surface Books have and the Surface Pros, a lot of people like to get the scratch resistant protectors. You don't need that with Gorilla Glass. It's drop resistant. Now, I'm not saying it's unbreakable. Please do not hurl off a cliff or take it skydiving with you and then come to me and say it broke when I jumped out of a plane. Not what I'm saying. But if you drop down the steps, there's a good chance it will hold on.
Interestingly enough, I have a client that everybody always kind of thinks of salespeople being hard on devices. I won't disagree with that. We have some here that are hard on devices. They had a sales rep that had a Surface device that was on his dashboard in his car. And he went around to turn, and the Surface device went right out the window of the car. And I don't recall if it landed face up or face down, but it was not broken, which is a pretty amazing testament to the glass that the device uses.
Yeah, they're very durable devices. And one thing that Dave mentioned, you mentioned the RAM issue. The components inside the Surface Pro and Surface Book, they're soldered in. So unlike traditional laptops, which have mechanical components that are basically plug and play.
Come loose and
exactly. Anybody here can probably attest to having dropped a laptop at one point and the screen starts acting up, or you hear a whirring sound because the hard drive has come loose or been damaged. Again, I'm not saying that if you drop this, something won't happen, but it is a very resilient device compared to traditional laptops.
Oh, it's good. So, James, talk a little bit about how you're able to run virtually any Windows application on the Surface.
So I'm going to jump back to using my mouse here. You'll forgive me if I don't go back to the pen right away, but I will keep this for safekeeping magnetically on the side of my device here. Why don't we lower this back down a little bit? There we go. So being able to run any software, I'll just go ahead and snap this here, and I will bring up Outlook. So I've actually got Outlook and OneNote loaded up here, and if I wanted to, I could bring up Google Chrome. I could bring up, say, Skype for Business, which is now up and running right here in the middle. I could even bring this into the bottom here. Notice, by the way, that I'm taking advantage of my screen real estate. And I could even do this with multiple desktops, by the way, if I wanted to really go crazy. So I'll go ahead and bring up a snip toolbar. Maybe I want to bring up another piece of software called TeamSpeak. It's bring up whatever you want, really, because this is a full Windows 10 operating system. I can do whatever I want on here, just like I would do on my desktop at home.
And full versions of Outlook, Office, again, big differentiator compared to other devices in the market. I know Apple has some compatibility with Office. I don't think it's 100% of what you would get.
To my knowledge, this was a year ago. Apple was still stuck on Office 2011.
Yeah.
Word, PowerPoint, Excel. I want to say they've been upgraded in 2013. I don't actually know, so don't quote me on that. But typically, Apple or any other operating system is going to be limited in their Office compatibility.
Yeah.
Whereas here on the Surface Pro 4 or the Surface Book, I've got Office 2016, 365 running, and should a new version in 2019 come out, typically in 3-year cycles, I will be upgraded to it automatically.
Yeah, and I find personally that Outlook, it's what, if you're using Outlook for email, it's what you live in a great portion of your day.
Oh, yeah.
Outlook runs phenomenally well on the Surface devices because, again, of the solid-state hard drives, depending on what the amount of RAM is that you get in your device. But these applications all run, they are lightning fast.
Oh, yeah.
When I had a laptop, I converted to the Surface device a couple of years ago. I would never go back to a full laptop. It is so much faster than a traditional laptop because of that Surface hard drive functionality. So,
and just to exaggerate, if you will, I've actually got Task Manager open here in the middle, and you can just see there are numbers and the application switching back and forth. And this thing is running smoothly. I mean, this is really probably about a third of my typical work day's worth of applications running.
Yeah.
So just take all of this and put it into overdrive, and that's what I do on a daily basis
Yeah.
with the machine, and it works perfectly well.
Yeah, performs really well.
Absolutely.
Let's talk a bit more about the pen. It's one of the more underutilized aspects of the Surface device that I find, and there's so much power in how you can interact differently with a pen. Why don't we, let's show how you can use the pen to virtually replace the keyboard. So just about any field or application that you enter information into, you can use a pen instead of a keyboard. So why don't we do an email and just show how we can interact with a pen rather than a keyboard.
All right, so I'll keyboard out of the way here so you guys can see that I'm not typing. And if I wanted to, I can just go ahead and hit new email. And I'm doing this just like I would do with the mouse, except with the pen. And I'll go ahead and in the body here, take the pen, and I can just jot down a note. So this is my email. There you go.
And you could actually send that now, and that would show up as a graphic, as a graphic of your handwriting, which is, I think it's a really interesting way to engage. Today it's so hard to get people's attention on email because they get so much. What I find is that this is an attention grabber. You send somebody an email that's handwritten, immediately they're like, wow, how did you do that? So you want to talk about being able to get somebody engaged and respond. This is a phenomenal way to do it.
You might notice here at the bottom, I'm actually writing in your name, Dave. I don't know if it'll pick it up this way, but it really looks 24/7 apparently. There you go. I just entered in Dave Buggy. Now, obviously, that's not your email there, but I can go ahead and fill out these fields.
And what James is doing there is that he's actually using the pen, but it is converting it to text. As you'll notice that in the CC boxes he's writing, it's actually converting it into text. So if you'd rather have, it convert back to traditional text. So if you're in a Word document, for example, you might not want your graphical, handwriting to be what goes in the document. You might want it to convert it to text. You just like to write with a pen. It just works phenomenal. That recognition that it's using there to translate, I find is very powerful. I rarely ever see it not interpret my handwriting, and I have terrible handwriting. And there's some great features down there, how you can strike a word. So if you just draw a line through the word, it'll strike that word. You can backspace, you can erase. So some really neat functions. The pen is exceptionally usable on this device. So he's just erasing now, as you can see. So some great tips and tricks there that will enable you to interact a little bit differently than with a keyboard that you might be used to.
I'll go ahead and get rid of that draft there.
Yeah, let's talk now about OneNote, James. So those of you that aren't familiar, Microsoft OneNote has been around for quite a long time. And actually, if you, on your own PCs, go out and browse your applications, you might find that you already have OneNote. It's another application in the Microsoft line that is very underutilized, and it is such a powerful application. Here at Behringer, we use OneNote to take just about all of our notes and meetings and things like that because it's so interactive. So what James is going to take you through here is just a OneNote notebook, and you can see it can have multiple tabs. So it's organized kind of like, you know, an old notebook with the separators and things like that. So it's easy to get used to. And then from the perspective of the pen, this is where I find that the pen really becomes handy, because for taking notes, if you prefer write rather than type, this is a great application. So James, why don't you show us how that works in OneNote with a pen?
Sure. And I just want to stress, I mean, a couple of years ago, if you had said to me, James, you know, OneNote is going to be your central application for doing pretty much everything in regards to taking notes, I wouldn't have believed you. I didn't know anything about OneNote. And then one day I just decided to take a whack at it. And now, you know, several months later, the development team and I use OneNote exclusively for everything in our meetings, for taking notes for clients. It really is just a very robust and great tool. So with that said, let me go ahead and just show you how I would share a notebook with another employee or a client, or, you know, whatever. I can just invite a person to this notebook, and it'll show here in a second who I have shared in this notebook already. Obviously myself, the members of the development team. You can see Dave here. You can see Lisa Behringer here. So let's say I want to go ahead and add in Erica, who is a coworker of mine.
So what James is doing here is he's inviting people to come in and interact in this notebook. And what's really, really powerful with this particular functionality is that you'll see here in a minute that James and I are in the same notebook. And I'm able to real-time collaborate with James right inside of this notebook. So if you go back to the notebook itself, to the blog time.
Let's go into blog topics. Out of here.
So right inside of this notebook, I'm able to add some text. And you'll see that that shows up, and it shows up with my comments right inside the notebook. So you can see there that it says adding text. If you can highlight that, James, it has DB next to it. That is where my text is going. And I just put in there, hi, James. So you can see that in real time on a different machine here, even if we're completely geographically separated, we're able to collaborate within the notebook here, which is exceptionally powerful. The other really powerful thing about the way OneNote works is that you can actually delegate tasks right through OneNote as part of just using this tool. So, you know, you think about, you go into meetings and you talk about a heck of a lot of things, but sometimes the execution isn't happening as much as it should. A way to control that and to really manage that is that right from within OneNote, as you talk about delegating things to people, you can actually delegate those right from the OneNote notebook. Right, James?
Exactly. Let's go ahead, and I'm going to bring my keyboard back here. Yeah, as a developer, I usually prefer to use the keyboard. And if I wanted to, I could take maybe Let's Talk, which is the blog I showed you guys earlier. Here we go. Here's actually the one that I highlighted earlier. And I could say, I could put a to-do tag, or I could say, you know, I could actually just email this page out. We'll show that first. I could email that to Dave.
And if you did a task there, it actually delegates that task right through just as if you did it in Outlook, you could delegate that task to another person on the team, put a due date on it and things like that, and you're doing it right from within the notebook. So everything related to that meeting is centralized in that one notebook. So as you meet, you know, again in the future, you're able to pick right back up where you left off, you know, and make sure that things are getting taken care of, the tasks that come out of the meeting. That's phenomenal functionality.
Back up here, make that a little bit easier. There we go. So I went ahead and put that task in there. And now you guys can see that it's an Outlook task. I'll go ahead and open that task in Outlook. And here we go. This is just a random piece of information from one of our blog posts that I'm sharing as a subject. And it's a task. And that's all there is to it. It's in Outlook now.
That's just great functionality.
I can assign the task, just like Dave mentioned, and I can assign that to, let's assign to the person that I recently invited. So I'm going to bring in Erica again. I'm picking on her because she's here in the room somewhere.
So one other thing, James, if you could just show the handwriting inside the OneNote notebook, because that's where I find that I use the handwriting aspect of the device is with notes in OneNote. I prefer to write sometimes than type. Plus, to be honest, when I'm in a meeting, I don't like clicking on keyboard. It seems like I'm not paying attention. I'm distracted if I'm typing. So I prefer to take notes. And obviously, being a technology company, we like to leverage the technology that we talk about a lot. So I use OneNote, and I, take notes using the pen with the device. And I just love that aspect of OneNote.
There we go. It was misbehaving earlier. So here we go. I just want to show you here. I've got my hand on the device itself. This is what we call palm guard technology. This is a technology that Microsoft implemented back with the original Surface Pro.
That's a good point.
Surface Pro 1, when that first came out. And you can just go ahead and put your hand right on the screen, start writing with the pen.
And your palm does not interfere with.
Exactly.
And that's an interesting point because I'm left-handed. And one thing that lefties have difficulty with is erasing ink or moving the ink as you write across the page. So it doesn't happen with that palm guard technology.
Exactly. Now, obviously I'm not left-handed here, but just to show you an example, again, hand is on the screen, both hands are on the screen, still writing.
Yeah, that's really, really
now if I would technology even select this text, and I did that by pressing, you can't really see here in the camera, it's very faint, but there's a slight groove on the pen. And if you press on the bottom of that, you can use that to actually select the text that you just wrote. So I've got that selected here, and I can move that around. So I just move that over there. So you can imagine here for a moment that if David and I are in a meeting, maybe he's taking notes on the blog topic webpage that we have open, I can actually take those notes, move it over into one section, and then write something down that I would want. And we've done this before. We've actually done this in training where other people have had notes open at the same time. The development team and I have done this at the same time. OneNote and, of course, writing on the pen has just made a very made a meeting very robust.
I think with OneNote, the biggest productivity factors for me are, one, that you're able to engage other people into one notebook. So all of your notes from that meeting collaboratively are in one place. And secondly, is being able to delegate tasks right from the notebook to people through Outlook is just absolutely phenomenal functionality. And then, of course, the pen integration, if you prefer handwriting rather than entering via keyboard, I think that's great.
Absolutely.
So to close up, why don't, James, show us a little bit about Cortana. I know it's something that not a lot of people are familiar with. And again, it's Microsoft's version of Siri. I don't think they might not like that I compare it that way, but I think that people can relate to that. So show us a little bit about Cortana.
Sure. So I've got Cortana linked up to voice recognition, which I'm going to go ahead and do on my headset here. So I apologize now if I look even nerdier than I normally would. So all I have to do is clearly say, hey, Cortana. And of course, now it won't work. Schedule lunch. You know what? The audio is linked up differently. So I'll tell you what I'll do. Turn that off for a second. If I wanted to type that in, I'll go schedule lunch.
So I think what's happening there is that your audio is going through the GoToWebinar.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Otherwise, you'd be able to talk to Cortana, and it is surprisingly robust. Understand you exceptionally well, and you can just talk to it and say, schedule lunch with Rob on Friday, just like he's typing.
I'll type that in there. And Cortana is going to schedule lunch on Friday onto my calendar. One thing I could also do is just ask the weather in Pennsauken, New Jersey.
And I use this feature of Cortana quite a bit when I'm traveling, just to look at kind of what the weather is, maybe in another place. Looks like you might be having some connectivity up.
This is just the default menu with Cortana. Just do that. Oh, I might have finally hit my limit on things I can do at the same time.
I think it looks like you might have some connectivity challenges. Sometimes going through GoToWebinar, it's a little bit difficult to be running some other web apps at the same time. The other aspect of this that I absolutely love, and I see a lot of application going forward for this, is that Cortana actually integrates with Microsoft CRM. So what you're able to do is to is to pull in contextual data from Microsoft CRM into Cortana. And what you're able to do with that is you're able to just say, for example, to Cortana, hey, Cortana, what are my sales opportunities for this month? And Cortana will be able to present you back the list of sales opportunities, even in a graph format that are, you have marked to close this month. So that's where kind of the next evolution of some of this is going. And it makes sense because we're also mobile today, that to take time to stop and even type sometimes is difficult because of how mobile we are. So being able to just do that with your voice is incredibly powerful. We're going to showcase that in an upcoming demonstration of Microsoft CRM. So stand by, those of you that are either interested in CRM or already have it. We'll show you how Cortana is going to interact with CRM on a different session. Really interesting functionality.
That's it, Dave. Just if you actually want to try this yourself, if you have CRM 2016, you can just go into Cortana, click up at the top here, click on Notebook, go to Connected Accounts, and you can see here, a little small, but you can see Dynamic CRM. I've got that configured to be on right now. I don't have that linked up with permissions on our CRM, so if I try to go in, it'll yell at me. But you can also see underneath it, LinkedIn, Microsoft Health is available, Office 365, and currently Uber or Xbox Live. I have actually got my Microsoft Health linked up so that Cortana can get information from the Microsoft band that I'm wearing, which is another discussion for another time. But you can very easily integrate Cortana into pretty much everything.
So we're right up against our ending time. That was a lot of great content. Thank you, James, very much.
Better in Los Angeles.
Oh, there we go.
So apparently they've got a high surf advisory.
Fantastic. I think we'll close up here with a couple questions. Again, thank you, James. That was great to run through. As you can see, there's just some very powerful uses with the Surface device itself. Let me go ahead and just put our contact information back up on the screen here as we close up, and we'll start to take some questions. All right. So as you can see, our contact information is up on the screen. If you have any follow-up questions, if you want to, take a bit of a deeper dive into the Surface device, another suggestion might be that if you're interested in kind of a proof of concept around devices, we can absolutely help you with that. Again, we're a certified Microsoft devices reseller. We can go a bit deeper into, the benefits of having a one Microsoft device strategy. So Surface devices, Microsoft phones, and so forth, all working together. We can absolutely help you with some of that as well. So let us know if you'd like to go a bit deeper into that, or maybe even talk about maybe a proof of concept, for your company on the devices. So there are a couple of questions that were posted. Let me just get to those. So one of them was, what is the cost of OneNote? Well, OneNote, as I said, comes with Microsoft Office. So if you have Office, you might already have a version that includes OneNote.
Yeah, if you've got 365 included in that, along with Word, Excel, PowerPoint, you also get OneNote along with Outlook, even Access and Publisher for anybody who's got Office 365 home. But no matter what version of Office 365 you get, you'll have OneNote, and when you get upgraded to it, you'll have the newest version of OneNote as well.
Yeah, great. So I would check again. I find that people sometimes have it and don't even really know that they have it. It's just lurking around in your programs on your PC, and you might be able to go back to your desk and start using that straight away.
Yeah, Dave, if you want, go click on Search the Web in Windows and just type in the word OneNote in your Cortana bar.
Oops. I think because I'm projecting here that it's probably not going to be allowed me.
Gotcha. Well, if you have Windows 10, you can actually just type in that little bar down there, type in the words OneNote as one word, and Cortana will see if you have it. They'll find it in your computer and see if you have it.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. I hope you found that beneficial. As I said, we can help you with a deeper dive on these devices, talk about overall device strategy for your business, talk about maybe proof of concept or pilots around the Surface devices and other Microsoft devices. So absolutely feel free to reach out. I hope you found today's session beneficial. We will be posting a recording, so if you'd like to share that with anybody else in your organization that didn't have the opportunity to join us, we'll have that posted up on our YouTube site by tomorrow. And with that, we'll go ahead and close up. And thank you again for joining us. James, thank you again for a great presentation.
Thanks for having me, Dick.